For more on the massive journey that Amazon Web Services has had, we are being joined today by Amazon CTO Werner Vogels from Amsterdam. Werner, it's been 15 years. Why did Amazon, which at the time was mostly known as an online retailer, decide to go into the AWS space?
Well, first of all, you have to, of course, realize that Amazon has been a technology company from day one. Yeah, if you think about recommendations and similarities and reviews and self-service ordering, all these kind of things that are common across all e-commerce companies now, they were all developed by Amazon on a technology base. And so in the early 2000, towards 2004, we built a shared services platform for our own teams to be efficient with, and no longer have to think about sort of compute and storage and databases. They're all managed for them. And we started to realize that there were many companies in the outside world that actually had a similar need. And especially those companies who were aiming to reach internet scale as well. And so we decided to rebuild a number of these services with external customers in mind. And Amazon S3, the simple storage service, was the first one that was launched in March in 2006, followed by the compute service in the fall of that year. And they became extremely popular immediately, both with young businesses, startups that needed to scale and no longer needed to have massive investments, as well as enterprises who immediately realized that this was way too good a deal for them as well, no longer to have to make these massive upfront investments to get access to technology. And I think we've been very successful on that. I mean, we've been the pioneers in this space. The concept of cloud computing didn't exist before this. And as such, we got a real head start in sort of building all these services. And also the close relationship with our customers, being able to sort of get continuous feedback from our customers, have resulted in the fact that now we have more than 200 services. Yeah, the early ideas around cloud computing was all about what they called infrastructure as a service: compute, storage, databases, network, security. But I think that's sort of the world of 2008, 2009. By now, we're much further. We've well over 200 different services in the space of analytics or mobile development or AI or IoT or enterprise services. All of these services are now available for our customers, and we enjoy tremendous success with them.
So, we talk a lot about how the cloud space can be used for remote work, but, there's a lot of practical applications outside of the workspace. How can the cloud be used in situations like rice fields in Indonesia or places in Poland?
Oh yeah. I've been fortunate to travel the world and meet many of our customers. And of course, we have the large startups, all the household names you have today, whether it's Airbnb or Uber or Stripe or any of those are, of course, all growing up on the cloud. And they're well-known examples. But if you travel outside of the US, what you meet a lot is sort of these companies that are solving truly hard human problems. And for example, in Indonesia, there's a company called Hara Token, where smallholder rice farmers, they don't have an identity and as such cannot get loans. And so what this small company does is give them an identity, measure their piece of land, measure their yield, and make that data available to banks. And now suddenly, instead of having to pay 60% interest for some loan shark, they now can get a normal loan. And so, or take, for example, Aquabite in Norway that attacks the idea of that we can't grow enough protein to feed the world. Or, whether it's the Ready School in Berlin that teaches immigrants coming into Germany, or one very popular one at the moment, for example, is Brainly, which is a young business out of Krakow in Poland that has built a self-service platform where students, high school students and university students can help each other with homework. And at the beginning of the pandemic, they had about 100 million customers and quickly grew to 300 million. Yeah, and we see that across the board. There is a number of these digital services that have become crucial. Of course, Zoom, like we're using now, actually grew from, what is it, 10 million daily users in December of 2019 to well over, I think, 300 million in April of 2020. Yeah, and so all of these have grown up in the cloud, and the enormous scalability and the advantageous economic model has help them grow and address their scaling needs.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about semiconductor shortages because the coronavirus disrupted the supply chain. As I understand it, Amazon, through acquisitions, now makes its own chips. Are you concerned about the world's reliance on certain companies like Taiwan Semiconductor for supplies, especially since we've seen production hampered by the pandemic?
Well, you have to remember, of course, that we learned a lot for building the supply chain for AWS from the tremendous effective supply chain that Amazon.com has. Yeah, and as such, we are building supply chains to our 25 regions around the world that are all replicated and actually can sustain shortages in any of those supply chains. A good example, I think, is probably from a number of years ago when there were massive floods in Thailand, and where a number of the factories that make hard disk motors were actually taken out. And as such, we saw a global shortage in hard disk manufacturing. But because of the way that we build our supply chains, AWS was never affected by this. And during the pandemic, we could rely on these highly effective, reliable supply chains to make sure that our data centers could continue to be filled with the capacity that we need. And I really want to give a shout out there to our data center technologists and our data center techs, because they really kept the lights on for everybody around the world.
Well, special thanks to Amazon CTO Werner Vogels. You can hear more about why every brand needs to be a technology company during his talk at South by Southwest.